them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get you up this way southward, and go into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwell therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds, and what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be good wood therein or not, and be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of first ripe grapes. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men come to Hamath. And they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Heman, Sheshai, and Talmai, I'm not sure if I'm getting these names correct, the children of Anak were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came unto the brook of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between two upon a staff. And they brought it of the pomegranates and of the figs. The place was called the brook of Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they returned from searching the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran and to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came into the land whither thou sentest, and surely it flowed with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We are not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land, though through which we have gone to search it, is a land that eateth up its inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature, and there we saw giants, the son of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So I don't really have a whole lot of notes today, but I have a few accounts and verses. And I've really been thinking about this account, the evil report that's been drawn up here, and we think about, what we hear from day to day and what we take in. And it's really, you got to have a lot of discernment nowadays, because there's a lot of that going on, now. A lot of evil reports, a lot of bad reports. So, I wanted to kind of draw a parallel from the spies that went in and gave that evil report, and the parallel of what we have today, and how this news can be a weapon. So what is today's evil report? And I ask that as an open question because you could pick anything. Really, there's a lot of evil reports out there. But, also I wanted to go back to something that I brought up months ago about a certain bill that was passed about 8 years ago now. So there we bring up the Smith-Mundt Act, the Modernization Act. And so I would argue that we have our evil reporters right here. These are our 10 spies that brought the evil report. This is what we have to deal with now. It's not people, but it is a group of people who want to disperse some information that will defeat and has a harmful result. So going on into Exodus, I wanted to go back and kind of do some, read a little passage back here. Chapter 3. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. The reason I wanted to go back here is, God says that this is a land where all these tribes are already at. This is not something like, well, when you get there, I'll have taken care of that. I'll put them out of the way. This is something that they're going to have to step out in faith in, and so this was told before the Exodus, before anything had ever happened, they ever left Egypt. This was knowledge that this land was already taken over by these tribes. So this was something that was a promise. This was the initial promise for the Israelites, and to have their land, their land of milk and honey. This was the initial covenant that he had made with Moses and all of the people that were undergoing these oppressive things. And we see a sort of a parallel throughout history. We see different times in history where those people who call out to God, who pray, we see those people that are oppressed by those. We see this parallel running that God knows what's going on. He knows that there's going to be things standing in front of his people, but he's always asking us and always commanding us basically to step out in faith, trust him. This is no different than what we see today. God knows exactly where his children are. And that if we know that, there is no fear. He knows where we're at. So he knows the beatings that take place. He knows the untruths that are circulating. He's 100% in control of the situation. God's not lost control. I mean, there's all these things. What's going on? How could this happen? Is there truth to the bad report? Yeah, there's some truth there. When the spies came back, and gave the report, yeah, there's milk and honey, there's all this fruit, but there's giants there. There's truth. That's truth. But just going on truth is going to defeat you, because you don't have the promise of the victory that you have over those circumstances. Those circumstances, by the way, God knows about already and has already had victory over them. So when we go on to looking at today, and last night, I wasn't really paying attention to much all throughout yesterday. I know there were supposed to be several rallies and several things going on, in different cities, and I knew all this was going on. I didn't watch it live, or I didn't look at any news until last night, and the things that I started seeing, and I've tried to separate myself from a lot of the 10 spies there, and try to look and seek out truth, because that's what we have to do now. Because of a lot of us due to the Smith Modernization Act, we have to seek that truth out, because we're being fed what they want you to know and what they want you to see. So, in seeking out this truth, I started uncovering, different things that happened yesterday, especially after a lot of the stuff was over. There was a massive group of people, especially in Washington, D.C., but in other areas too. But there was a massive group of people that were out there, not being violent, not doing anything, but just peaceful protest, what we historically know as peaceful protest anyway. So after the majority of these people had broken up and went home, in came all the rioters, in came all the violent people, and basically swarmed the rest of the people that were there. There were reports of women and children getting beat in the streets. I saw a video of one man was probably in his 50s or 60s, got knocked out unconscious just for walking through a particular area of Washington, D.C. And so we see these things going on. And when we look at the parallel back to the Egyptians, when we see that, God knows where his people are at. It's not that he's letting these things happen because these things, or whatever. He knows where his people are at. He hears the cries. He understands that there are people seeking truth. And, the video that I saw where this guy got knocked completely unconscious, hit the pavement, and I'm thinking, goodness, they picked him up. People that were around him picked him up, put their hands on him, and started praying for him right there in the middle of the street. All this stuff's still going on around him, and I was like, that is a picture. That's a picture of the church. Pick up your brother and pray for him in the midst of whatever's going on. So, there's something there meant for evil and was basically used for good. They picked him up, they prayed for him, they walked him out, helped the brother out. So even though all this chaos and all this stuff is going on, God knows where his people are at. So in James verse 2, chapter 2, verse 5. Hearken, my beloved brethren, hath not God chosen the poor of this world rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he hath promised to them that love him? But ye have despised the poor. Do not rich men oppress you and draw you before the judgment seats? Do not they blaspheme that worthy name by the which ye are called? So, the people that I had seen yesterday, very, God-loving people, that were kind of stuck behind, and trying to get out. And I'd seen people who were trying to basically be bodyguards to these people, and their accounts from it. We shouldn't expect praise or even respect from those that are persecuting, that are carrying out these violent actions, because these are the ones who blaspheme the worthy name from which we call ourselves, So we're told that this is going to happen, but when you see it, it turns your stomach. It makes you feel like, it makes you have like a righteous anger, righteous anger towards those people. But at the same time I was watching that, I'm like, all these people need help. All these people need prayer, even though they're spitting and they're hitting and they're running up in packs and running up on people, they need prayer. It's always something that we need to keep in perspective. And, it's like the first emotion is anger, and the first emotion is compassion, and the next, we should exercise that and actually pray for the people who not only have been attacked, but the ones who are attacked and the ones who are so blind they can't see the truth. And Matthew, this is going to be the Amplified version, Matthew chapter 5. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, punishment that fits the offense. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person who insults you or violates your rights. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other toward him also. Simply ignore insignificant insults or trivial losses, and do not bother to retaliate. Maintain your dignity, your self-respect, your poise. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also, for the Lord repays the offender. And whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. So, when we look at this, and we've always heard an eye for an eye, and this is kind of vigilante law. This is what this is talking about. A lot of it, those things those people that come against us and want to ridicule, want to insult, want to even attack or whatever. There's something that we see here is humanly, physically impossible for us to practice in our own strength. this is impossible for us to do in our own strength. And when we start to see that, and then when we let God take over, we start to have that compassion for the people who want to strike our cheek or want to ridicule. But it's a sheer impossibility for us to do it in our own strength, and you can see that. But there was a lot of those people that I saw yesterday, and these were just videos, random video clips from people. And there was a guy that was like probably in his 60s, but he had rode down there on a bike, and his bike said Trump on it. He had Trump on his grip on his bike, and this guy was wearing like an American flag T-shirt, and they tried to steal his bike, tried to break his bike. They were trying to do all these things. They were throwing stuff at him, and he walks off, through all this. I mean, getting stuff thrown. I saw bottles hitting him in the head and all kinds of stuff. And this is what we're called to do. This is what we're called to be, is that light that doesn't retaliate, but shows a voice, shows a position of what Christianity is, and that's love, even for those who are attacking or those who belittle. In Romans chapter 12, dearly beloved, skip ahead somewhere. I don't have Romans up there. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place. This is 12:19. But rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. That's another hard one. That's another hard one to do. So, again, we're told, this is God's vengeance to have. This is what He is telling us to do. Step out of the way. I've got a plan for all these people who are ridiculing, who are blaspheming, who are those who are coming against you because you wear the name Christian. I've got an answer. I've got a plan for all of these people. But is specifically asking us to do the opposite, which is extremely difficult and impossible in our own strength. To feed someone who's hungry, who's berating you, to give someone a drink who is at the same time spitting at you. These things are extremely hard to do in our own strength. But in Psalms, and I want to kind of go with this too, because I saw a lot of this happening too. In Psalms 82:3, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. It's talking about, the people who come up and attack or ridicule, those especially who are defenseless. In the one account that I saw yesterday, and this lady was a black lady with two small girls, walking through, and they kept reporting it as BLM Plaza, because they tried to rename the Freedom Plaza to BLM Plaza. So anyone who was walking through Freedom Plaza was getting attacked, and it didn't matter. There was this lady and her two girls, and they were getting attacked as well, just for coming out and daring to wear an American flag shirt. There is room for defense here. There's room for defending those who are indefensible and those who can't defend themselves. But we have to keep the knowledge that these people, they walk in darkness. They walk in darkness. They have no foundation, and that's what we have to kind of keep in the back of our minds, because it's easy to draw a line in the sand and say, you're on that side, I'm on this side, But we need to start not looking at that line and look at the other person, and realizing that they're just another brother, they're just another sister, and they need help because they have no foundation. They're swaying in the wind, just like we would expect with something with no anchor. You're going to be tossed to and fro in the storm. So how can we do this, and where do we get the strength? And that's the question, that's the question that we have to ask, because we don't have that strength. We don't have the ability in ourselves to do this. And this is a very popular verse, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. And this is something that we all need to say, I think, every day to ourselves. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me, because we have to humble ourselves. And I think that this is a time where there's a lot of, I think God is using this time to allow a lot of humbling going on, and especially in those who have been in power, and those who have almost seen themselves as being winners all their lives, and having that period of being humbled. You hear the sports athlete, that has won all their lives, and they get to a point where they lose, and they lose, and they lose, and they lose, and they fall away because they are not used to losing. They don't know how to deal with losing. They've always won. They've always been told they're great, and then they start losing, and some people fall away, and they just spiral out of control if they don't have that foundation. But I think that this is a time where a lot of people are being humbled, and I'm hoping that that's the case, that they've got some people around them, some grounding, that they're not going to just completely go off course, but to be humbled. And that's what we need to realize, that we can do all things through Christ. It's not in our strength, it's in His strength. He gives us that strength to get through these things. So in those times that we find ourselves, if we ever find ourselves in the middle of these things where there is persecution, where there is an attack, or not even physical, but those times that we find ourselves in every day, that we find ourselves discouraged, that's an attack. That's an attack from the devil. We need to look at that as an attack on our spirit. This discouragement, these things that come against us and just try to chop us down at the knees or whatever. We need to remember in Isaiah, "Fear thou not, for I am with thee, but be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness." And that's something we need to remember, about truth. And we talk about truth all the time. We talk about the new revelation of this generation that we're in, that we find ourselves in, of the truth versus my truth, and what that means. I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. It's powerful, because if truth is on your side, God is going to be, on your side. Because God is truth. "Behold, all they that were incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded. They shall be as nothing, and they that strive with thee shall perish. Thou shalt seek them, and shalt not find them, even them that contended with thee. They that war against thee shall be as nothing, and as a thing of naught. For I, the Lord thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, Fear not, I will help thee." And this is another thing that we need to stand on every single day, because we talk about the things that are going on around us, and I bring this up a lot because we see it every day. We see what's going on. We see the rights, the wrongs that are happening. We see all these things. We see the battle. Sometimes it looks more like an uphill battle. Sometimes it looks like you're standing at the foot of Mount Everest, and you're looking up and you can't even see the top because you're so far at the bottom of this mountain. This problem seems so gigantic. But when we see those things, I used to. Whenever I first started and what I'm doing now, but I was actually an assistant or whatever. This was 12 years ago or more, about more than that now. It's probably 18 years ago now. But anyway, when I started doing this thing, I would walk in to do my job, and you would have in the back room of these stores, you would have a certain spot for your drinks. I'd walk in there and I would see 14 pallets of Coke. I'm thinking, where do I start? You know, this is a mountain of drinks, literally. So, you know, I would walk in and I would say, well, where do I start? You know, and a lot of those times, early on, I was extremely discouraged. I did not like going in. I did not like doing that. But, you know, there were certain things that I found over time. It's like, this is not so big of a mountain, you know, and we start letting that defeat come in before we turn our eyes to God. We start letting that defeat come in and defeat us before we even engage in the battle. And that's a powerful thing. You know, we can be defeated before we even step on the, well, we're always on the battlefield, but before we step into battle, we can be defeated. If we look at that mountain instead of Christ and what He has overcome for us, and that strength that He has promised us, you know. So we continue to look at these things, and whatever happens, you know, there's many things that can, many directions this world, this country in particular can go in the next year or so, and you know, there's multiple different facets here. I mean, you've got, you know, the health facet with coronavirus still being a thing. You know, we got, you know, a mayor, I think, the other day just proclaimed another mask mandate. And now there's, you know, signatures trying to get him recalled or whatever. I don't know. I saw that yesterday pop up where they were trying to get him out of office with, you know, to each his own, whatever, you know. So, I mean, you've got that facet. You've got, you know, financial stuff going on. You've got political stuff going on. You've got all these things that are happening. And if you look at it all in one big thing, it looks like a pretty big, you know, if we're talking about facets, it looks like a pretty big rock, you know, with all these different problems on each side. So when we don't even need to be looking at that. We don't even need to be looking at that gigantic mess of problems. So, you know, it's just, you know, this is what I've been thinking about this past few weeks, and especially the account of the spies going in and bringing back that bad report and basically defeating all of Israel with that bad report before they even tried to attempt to go into the land, you know, and it's almost like a direct parallel if we look at it in the same way today with all these things that are coming up and saying, you know, this is just bad news, negative, 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 negative. And when we see that, it starts to, if we let it, it starts to defeat us before we even take the battlefield. So, you know, I didn't have a whole lot, but those were the main things that I've been, it's just been on my heart, you know, the spies going in, bringing back the evil report, and not really grabbing hold of that promise and that covenant that was made to those people, you know, and they had seen all these things go on, all these miracles that had been performed for them, you know, their backs against the sea, you know, and I put out I would argue with these people now on harbor. I can't stand calling it that because, you know, knowing that it's a French word, everybody calls it, and even the company calls it that now, parlor. You know, I put something on there last night after seeing all these things and just trying to ground myself into the foundation of where Christ wants us. You know, I put on there and I said, you know, God's people had to have their back against the sea, had to have no other way out. Their strength and their options were exhausted before God came and said, I'm going to provide you a way. So, you know, and I put that on there because I was seeing so much negativity from yesterday, and I thought, you know, our backs may be against the sea right now. You know, we're just waiting on the Lord because that's all we can do.